This is the remediation video on transformations. You need a pencil, your folder, and the remediation packet. What will you learn in this video? Today you're going to learn vocabulary transform, up, down, more steep, less steep, positive, negative, greater than, less than, and slope. You are going to learn, does a graph shift up or shift down? How do you know? Is a graph more steep or less steep than the original? How do you know? When does a graph have a positive slope? When does a graph have a negative slope? How do you know? Given a graph, how did it transform? First, we have vocabulary part 1. We're going to write the meaning, and then you're going to translate it into your first language, and then we're going to draw a picture. So aquí podemos escribir qué significa. Shift up means move up. In this column, you need to write it in your first language. So en esta columna necesitas escribir en tu primer idioma, español, or you need to write it in Pashto, Farsi, Urdu, Chinese, whatever your first language is. For the picture, we're going to draw an example. That's the original graph, and that's the new graph. The graph shifted up, so the graph moved up. The next vocabulary word is shift down. This means move down. Again, write it in your first language, and then we're going to draw a picture. So this is the new graph, and that's the original. So the graph shifted down. All right, more steep means more inclination. Más inclinado. Less steep is the opposite. Este es el opuesto. It means less inclination. So write it in your first language and then copy the picture. So this is a normal graph. And then this is more steep. This is your normal graph. And then this is less steep. All right, vocabulary part 2. Positive just means that it's a positive number. So for example, we're going to write examples. 4, 3, x, y, those are positive. Or you can have a positive slope. Negative, you could do -2, -1/2, -x, -y, or we have negative slope. And then again, write it in your first language. Greater than is this symbol. It means bigger. So este símbolo significa mayor que, so escribe en español aquí. Y este significa es más grande. Mayor que significa más grande. So it means it's bigger. For example, 8 is bigger than 1. Less than is this direction to the left, and it means smaller. Este significa es más pequeño. En español, este símbolo se llama menor que. For example, 1/2 is less than 1. That is vocabulary part 2. Next, we're going to do discovery on Desmos. Please go to Canvas and click Desmos. These are the steps to do the Desmos activity. First, you need to open the calculator Desmos and change the settings. So el primer paso es necesitas abrir la calculadora Desmos en Canvas y cambiar los ajustes. So this is Desmos. You're going to change the settings right here. So cambiar los ajustes aquí. No minor grid lines. X, 1, Y, 1. Now the graph is ready. Ahora la gráfica está listo. Okay, now we're going to do step 2. Type f of x equals x. This is called the original graph. So ahora escribe f de x igual x. Esa es la gráfica original. Step 3. Click below. So after this, you need to click right here. Step 4, type g of x equals x plus 4. Ahora escribe esta ecuación en Desmos. Now we need to determine what happened. Ahora necesitamos determinar qué pasó con la gráfica. So this is my original. This is my new graph. So esa es la gráfica original y esa es la gráfica nueva. So what happened to the graphs? This is the same exact graph. Okay, so that's this one, and then this one is right there. Okay, the graph shifted up 4 spaces. So this is the original, and this is the new. 1, 2, 3, 4. The graph shifted up 4 spaces. La gráfica, no sé cómo se dice en español, mover 4 espacios arriba. Now we need to explain. Ahora necesitamos explicar por qué 4 is positive. Porque el número es positivo significa la gráfica necesita mover arriba, porque esta dirección es los números positivos. Abajo es los números negativos. All right, let's look at the next example. Siguiente ejemplo. You can type this in Desmos if you want to check. Tú puedes escribir esto en Desmos si quieres chequear. So again, this is the original, and this is the new graph. So what happened? Did it move up, or did it move down? 1, 2, 3, and it went down. So the graph shifted down 3 spaces. Because 3 is negative. So, porque el 3 es negativo, significa la gráfica está moviendo abajo en esta dirección, porque los números abajo son negativos, los números arriba son positivos. All right, next one, we are going to practice. Here you're going to write the transformation, and here you're going to do the explanation. I'm going to do one example, and then you need to do the next 4. So, example number 1. This is the original. This is my new graph. So I have plus 1. The transformation is shift up 1 space. So mover arriba un espacio. Explanation. ¿Por qué? Because 1 is positive. All right. I'll do one more. Number 2. -7. So this is a negative. So we're going to shift down 7 spaces. ¿Por qué abajo? Because 7 is negative. Entonces, la gráfica cambia por 7 espacios abajo porque 7 es un número negativo. So la gráfica necesita mover en la dirección de los números negativos. Okay, now you are going to do number 3, 4, and 5 on your own. Now that you've finished answering the questions, I'll tell you the answers. This one is shift up 3 spaces because 3 is positive. This one is shift down 5 spaces because 5 is negative. This is also shift down 9 spaces because 9 is negative. Good job. Now we're going to do a knowledge check. We are comparing to the number 1. So, for example, 3 is greater than 1. The next one, 1/2, is less than 1. In Spanish, this is 3 es mayor que 1. Aquí es mitad es menor que 1. Mayor que aquí significa más grande. Less than, menor que, significa más pequeño. Mitad de pizza es más pequeño que pizza. So, I compared it to pizza. Half a pizza is obviously smaller than 1 whole pizza. Next, we have 2. Is it greater than or less than? The answer is 2 is greater than 1. 8 is greater than 1. 2/3 is less than 1. 4 is greater than 1. 3/7 is less than 1. And 1/4 is less than 1. Okay? So normally, if it's a fraction, it's less than 1. There are some cases where it's not. So, para esta unidad, normalmente fracciones son menor que 1, pero este no es siempre el caso. So please be careful. All right. Now we're going to do a knowledge check talking about steepness or slope. So here we have 3 graphs. We have the first graph, the original graph, and the last graph. So the first graph is less steep. Okay, that means less inclined. Okay, so that means it is less than 1. This is the original graph. So this just means f of x equals x. This is the normal graph. Esta es la gráfica normal. This graph is more steep, and that means more inclined. So look at the difference of the lady walking up the mountain. Here, in example number 1, right here, it's not too difficult to walk up. It's pretty easy. Here, and more steep, it's very difficult to climb the mountain. So mira los ejemplos aquí. Menos inclinado significa es más fácil caminar la montaña. Pero aquí, en el otro ejemplo, es más inclinado y así significa more steep, es más difícil caminando en la montaña. Okay? And that means it is greater than 1. So if it's less than 1, less steep. More than 1, more steep. So cuando es menor que 1, es menos inclinado. Más que 1 significa más inclinado. So let's look at this example. 1/2. How does it compare to 1? ¿Cómo puedes comparar mitad con 1? Is it greater than or less than? It's less than. So the graph is less steep because 1/2 is less than 1. So this is the original, and this is the new graph. So this one is easier to climb. Ese es más fácil caminar la montaña. So eso significa es menos inclinado or less steep. Check out the next example. 2. How does 2 compare to 1? 2 is greater than 1. The graph is more steep because 2 is greater than 1. Here is the practice, and now it's your turn to determine if it's more steep or less steep. So esta es la práctica y es tu turno determinar si es más inclinado o menos inclinado. Y explica por qué. These are the answers to the practice. 1/3 is less than 1, so it's going to be less steep. 4 is greater than 1, so it's going to be more steep. 8 is greater than 1, so it's more steep. 2/3 is less than 1, so it's less steep. On the last one, you need to ignore the negative. 6 is greater than 1. Now the next example is a mix. So el siguiente ejemplo es una mezcla. So first we have the number is positive. So slope is positive. Next, 1/2 is less than 1. So that means it's less steep. -4, 4 is negative. So that means shift down 4. So número enfrente, un mitad es positivo, so eso significa slope es positivo. Y un mitad es menor que 1, so eso significa es menos inclinado. Y -4 es negativo, so eso significa la gráfica necesita mover 4 espacios abajo. Now it's your turn to do the next example. So the answer is -5 is negative, so it has negative slope. 5 is greater than 1, so it's more steep. 3 is positive, so the graph shifts up 3 spaces. So la respuesta es, porque el número enfrente es negativo, significa slope es negativo. Porque 5 es mayor que 1, significa la gráfica es más inclinado. Y +3 significa mover la gráfica 3 espacios arriba, porque 3 es positivo. Next section, we have practice again. That's mixed, so do the same thing. This one is less steep because 2/3 is less than 1. And shift down 1 space because -1 is negative. Now it's your turn to do the next two. The answer for the first one is, the transformations are, it's negative slope because there's a negative in front, because -1/4 is negative. It is less steep because 1/4 is less than 1, and you shift up 7 spaces because 7 is positive. Here's the answer to the last practice problem. The last part of the packet is what happened to the graph. So this is the original graph. Esa es la gráfica original. And this is the new graph. So what happened to the original? Did it move up or did it move down? The graph moved down, but how many spaces? So shift down, pero ¿cuántos espacios? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The graph shifted down 6 spaces. Now we have to practice. Here is the original function and here is the new. The graph shifted up how many spaces? 1, 2. So over to the right, you're going to write shifted up 2 spaces. On the second example, this is the original and this is the new, so it went down. And then you have to count how many spaces, cuántos espacios. One space. Shifted down one space. The last part is making the connection. If you're shifting up or shifting down, that's describing where the graph intersects the y-axis. This is also called the y-intercept. The steepness of a line describes the inclination. This is also called the slope of a line. M is slope, and B is the y-intercept. Example, y equals 2x minus 3. 2 is slope, negative 3 is the y-intercept. That means we're going to shift down 3. Slope means it's more steep. Up 2, right 1. So esta ecuación es un ejemplo porque 2 significa es más inclinado. So entonces es 2 arriba, 1 derecha para slope. Menos 3 es la intersección con el eje de Y. Y eso significa la gráfica necesita mover 3 espacios abajo. This is the same page, but in Spanish. Now, you need to go to Canvas. Go to Algebra 1. Go down, go to Target Quizzes. And now practice 1.4 Transformations of Lines. Good luck!